Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today, I am very excited to be bringing you an episode I've been looking forward to for a long time and introduce you to Shelby Austin from Arteria AI. Shelby, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me here today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Listen, I've been excited about this, as I say. We've just been doing a bit of a preemptive dive before it, going into some of the things we want to talk about. Couldn't be more passionate or excited about what we're going into. I think this is so relevant, so exciting, and we haven't even discussed half the things I want to go through. So this might well be a 2-episode show. But Shelby, first and foremost, please give us a bit of an intro. Tell me about yourself and the business.
So to start with, I am a serial founder. I've been at this for a long time. I started my career as a partner in a law firm, and then I went to start my first company in the documentation technology space, which is kind of neat. It was called ATD, and it was amazing. And we focused on kind of law firm processes around M&A. So it was an early precursor to what we're seeing so much of in this particular moment. So it's kind of neat. And the best thing about that company is that my co-founder in this company was one of my first employees in my first company. Um,
Brilliant.
Sold that business to Deloitte, ended up staying at Deloitte and building their AI practice for them, their data and analytics practice for them, and then eventually running growth at the executive level for them, and then deciding that it was time to take my big swing. So in that Deloitte chapter, so lucky that we met our final co-founder, Jonathan Wong, who ran product for Deloitte at the time. And so the three of us decided that it was time to focus again in the sort of doc space, but this time in financial services. So what we're doing at Arteria is we like to say we're the agentic backbone of financial services operations, and that we're built very, very specifically for sort of complex workflows of institutional finance. And what we're really meaning when we say that mouthful is that we're combining modern AI, automation, and workflow orchestration to transform these many, many document-heavy processes into faster and safer and very scalable sort of execution across the enterprise. And really, that's what we're up to at Arteria now.
And that's not been a bad timing, really, has it? I know you've been sat, and we'll come to this in a second. You've been in the AI space pretty much before it became cool, and now it seems to be exactly the right part. But there's been, it started, if I'm not mistaken, 2019 that you kicked this off. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So just in 2020 is when we kicked it off,
Yeah.
which was so neat. Yes, you're so right. I mean, people used to sit next to me at a dinner party. I used to say I was an artificial intelligence, and they used to move their chairs around the table. And now in this moment, I'm
Swarming
very
towards it.
popular at dinner, but at the time, I can assure you, in 2012, 13, 14, et cetera, it wasn't necessarily the coolest thing
Bit of
to
eye
do.
rolling.
Yeah, and one of the neatest things about having been in this space for so long is you've seen the evolution. Like I never, ever, ever thought in my career that I would see the world come this far and
Mm.
how just frictionless and easy and impactful we're seeing artificial intelligence be. So it is very fulfilling for folks like me to help, understand that the world now sees what we have seen for some time, and we're no longer kind of screaming into the wind. We are in fact, have this amazing group of folks around the world who now see what we see, and it's unbelievable. Um,
And that sort of vision's, I think, so important, isn't it? When you say screaming into the wind, and now people are starting to see what you can see. That's also been backed, hasn't it? I mean, you had a $30 million Series B, which is fantastic to read about. I know, some of the people behind that very well, and I know how they speak about you in the business, and it's phenomenal. Um, how's it been? How's this start been? I mean, as you say, it's not your first rodeo; it's the second startup you've done. How's this? Yeah, it couldn't be better timed. The appetite for what you're doing, I think, is enormous. It feels like right people, right team, right place.
well, we're first of all, we're so lucky. not many companies get to have completed their Series B in their third year of business,
I
and
know.
have just been running around those bases. So it's been quite amazing, and as you say, pretty phenomenal timing. Um, Even in this moment that we're calling the SaaS apocalypse, where everyone's kind of turned against tech companies. We are working in a regulated space with a very closed network of people on a very complex workflows, with very, very deep and rich data sets, all of which make it quite complicated. I mean, when we think about what the internet did for retail finance, AI is going to do that for institutional finance. And we're finally able to attack sort of very complex problems that we've never been able to before. And so, yes, it's been a real privilege to be on this journey. And yes, we're very lucky to have found such incredible investors who have been with us on this journey. And you know, being able to raise at the bottom of the market in 23 and now thinking about where we go next from here again is yeah, we're pretty excited and pretty lucky to be in our position.
We'll come on later to what that looks like there, but I think I love people who've created great businesses like yours, who and how many times luck comes into it, and I think I always say luck is a dividend of hard work, and although I've paraphrased that in many ways, but I think the concept there of having a vision, and you talk about that beforehand, from being sat around and avoided at dinner parties before it was there, to now where it is right now, straight in the middle of it. That's vision rather than luck in terms of where you sit, and then the ability to create a great team around you is also a skill set. And I love the fact that's come through into what you've done before and proven and then recreated. So let's go into this whole thing about what's happening at the moment. As you say, look, there is a perfect time. You have been screaming into the wind beforehand, and now everyone's suddenly doing it. And we're seeing this rate of evolution in this space that just hasn't been seen before. We were talking beforehand, and you mentioned that the last couple of quarters have been quicker than the last 5 years, and then the last 2 decades, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, as I said before, a mixture of excitement and fear about how quick this is all moving. Give us your précis of what's happening in the world at the moment.
Yeah, so first of all, things are moving incredibly quickly, as you say. If we had, let's say, maybe 50 or 60% of our code base being written agentically before the holidays, we're now at the point where probably the overwhelming majority, or like 90% of our code base, is actually being written agentically now.
Yeah.
And just to give you a sense, and we're a software company. So imagine that we're a software company who doesn't write software. Or I suppose it's more modern to say that we're an agentic systems company. But effectively, we are someone who accelerates large scale business by working with them to give them speed on that journey. But it's quite interesting because the world is moving at such a fast rate. I mean, we're using AI in every single aspect of our business. For example, I was telling you that I now have Mark Zuckerberg was my inspiration. So thank you if you're listening to the pod, then
He's a big fan of
thank
the
you for
show
that.
for sure.
Huge fan. Is I made myself a chief of staff bot to be able to get updates from the company, and rather than saying, give me your status report, we're now saying, where's the agent, so that I can get the status report on an ongoing basis. And so we're
Yeah.
just seeing this permeate every aspect. And what's so interesting is that there's a huge range of what's out there. Some people just don't know and can't kind of see what's out there in the market right now, and can't see sort of the speed of the transformation. People will say stuff like, "Oh, well, only 5% of companies have seen any impact from AI so far, and there's a lagging indication, and will this be as big?" And what we do is we actually sit down with executives and put them in the tools, so they can understand this moment, because it's so important to be able to see. And it's almost like, once you see, you can't unsee what's happening in this moment in time. I call it a matrix moment, where once you take that little blue or red pill, whichever one it was, then of course you see the world completely differently. My actual chief of staff, not my bot chief of staff, but my actual chief of staff looked at me blankly when I made a Matrix reference, because he's too young to have seen the Matrix. It's just
Surely not.
which was so crazy. But what is critical in this moment is, once you have an understanding of how quickly you can prototype, you can just understand that you can accelerate every single aspect of your business so quickly. And then, of course, the nuance goes with that, which is like a prototype is not, in fact, a production grade, um, piece of technology available for scaled and safe use. And so, you start to layer on nuances there. But the critical point of this moment is that once you wake up, or as we say, once you get on the bus, which we want everyone to do, it's very hard to sort of unsee this moment. And then all of a sudden you see a million opportunities and you feel this compelling, urgency to bring everyone along on that journey and just run. Because once you can start to understand that there's no stopping this, and it will permeate every single aspect of modern work that we see, that's when you start to say, wow, this is unbelievable. This is going to completely change how we show up every day. And we get into incredible conversations about what the future of the digital workplace experience will be, or how I will look at my desktop in the future, and all that's amazing. But then, of course, you also start to get a teensy bit scared and say, gosh, we need to be
Yeah.
a bit mindful about this too, because obviously there will be a balance there in terms of jobs lost, et cetera.
And that becomes an interesting conversation, doesn't it? Because I don't think I've been in the industry for 26 years, and I don't think that I've ever been in a period than probably the last 6 to 12 months where I've spoken to as many people who are as energetic and enthusiastic about anything than I've seen them about the potential of what's happening in the industry right now with AI. It's phenomenal. And it's really energizing for me to watch people talking with the excitement they are about it at this stages. So we kind of have this mind-blowing opportunity to see what's happening in the space at the moment. And then conversely, I see a lot of people with fear and trepidation and the whole doomsday end of the spectrum about where this goes, and helping people to understand what's possible and what's potential. We were talking and joking beforehand that I don't think anyone's the expert. That's the beauty of this thing, that no one really knows where it goes. We've got this runaway train with a couple of guardrails on the sides of it, but it could go anywhere in terms of what that looks like and where it means. And as you mentioned before, there's a great opportunity for some transformational change, but within that there'll be some casualties alongside that too, and repatriation of opportunities and jobs and a whole bunch of things. I've got 3 kids, and I'm often thinking about what they look like and what their jobs are going to look like and where that goes. But then this explosion of creativity, this explosion of entrepreneurialism, this explosion of things that people can do that we've just never even thought of before suddenly becomes even more pressingly exciting alongside that. So a long ramble for you, but to throw it into some sort of question, tell us a little bit about what, and help us understand what's happening and what the sort of opportunities are within that space right now,
Yeah, so
and
first of all,
threats.
I think we have to acknowledge that many jobs will go. I mean, we've
Mm,
already seen Oracle 30,000, we've seen Meta take a huge chunk, Amazon 15,000. So, I mean, within technology, I think it was Goldman Sachs who put it at 300 million jobs will go by the wayside, but has also sort of said that statistically this is relatively small in terms of overall unemployment.
mm,
Um, and in addition, if we look at 100 years of economic history, we certainly know that new jobs will be created in this moment. For example, all of the jobs at Arteria wouldn't exist without this moment. And so we sort of see this, there will be a lot of jobs created and a lot of jobs lost, where I think we have to be thoughtful in terms of the discussion. I don't think people acknowledge this enough.
mm,
Um, is that for the individual whose job goes away, that doesn't take down the stress for that individual knowing that there may be some other job. And so I think we as global citizens have to be very, very thoughtful about upskilling, retraining, et cetera, and really bridge any transition to prosperity that we need to see. But you and I were also talking about just before then about how this is really a moment for builders. And so if you
mm.
are a builder, which I am, you're filled with like absolutely like a million ideas that you could take out to market in this moment. I have so many ideas, and I'm working on one company, and there are so many more ideas
Yeah,
that I could approach in this market. But also,
and just coding on your own at the same time as well, aren't you?
yeah,
So,
exactly. And there are so many ideas with which people can sort of go to market, and it's never been easier to start a company in your house with over a weekend. And so it's quite it's quite an incredible moment in time. And again, being mindful of those jobs that will be lost most certainly, and how tough that will be, and how I really do think that not to turn your podcast into something political, but I do think we need
Mm.
to sort of encourage governments to be, quite thoughtful in terms of assisting. That's my Canada pitch for today. And we do need to, and we do need to be thoughtful around that. I also think, if you're working in any industry, there is a moment right now where if you've ever thought, gosh, I'd love to start a company that does X, there's never
Mm,
been an easier moment to do that. And as
mm.
someone who started in the most traditional job at a law firm, like very posh law firm wearing suits every day of my life, like anyone can kind of get in the game and do it. It's just a matter of like going forward and starting. And so I will say that this is perhaps the most exciting moment when we are in a complete prosperity crisis and a productivity crisis. I think we need to encourage kind of this kind of risk taking and this kind of thinking, which is like anyone, anywhere can go and start something,
Yeah,
and that's pretty neat. And that will enterprise will work will most certainly look differently in the future, like for
yeah,
sure it will. And people will say, like, it's just tasks that are augmented, it's not jobs. The truth is those tasks do eventually amount to jobs, and that work will sort of look and feel differently. Like we'll go to work and I'll say, rather than hey Alexa, I'll say like, hey Anthony, like what are my messages looking like this morning and what do I have to do today? And I'll sort of have an Iron Man set up where
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and Anthony is my chief of staff, so shout out to both my Anthony and my Anthony bot. But like,
Both on.
I'll just like it will feel different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But also, conversely, you can go and anyone can kind of start anything right now, and that's pretty exciting.
I definitely think I 100% agree with that, and it is about repatriation in many sort of forms, and then this the scale of opportunity. And I think you've got a really interesting relationship with trying and failing that I don't think necessarily is a natural sort of entrepreneurial trait. But I think that's something which people are going to have to learn as well. You talked about 10 times failing and the 11th time it works out, etc. And I think that's something which people are going to have to learn alongside it to develop their relationship with that as well,
Yeah.
particularly in
So
this sort of
first of all,
space.
I think I always say this to my kids. Um, my kids will joke with me like, and I'll say, like, I just fail more before breakfast than most people do, like, in a whole year because I'm at bat all day, every day. And working in a startup, if you're growing really fast, you often create a healthy amount of chaos that can cause, some mistakes and some challenges. And so really just picking yourself up from whatever comes your way and keeping on going, I think is critical in this moment. But in addition, I think from an enterprise transformation perspective, what are the stats? McKinsey says something like 90 or 95% of companies fail on tech transformations, and that those stats continue to persist in AI projects, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the answer to that? Because actually, like the technology really works. I just transformed my whole organization in a quarter, and like you have to do it because it's here and it's relevant. And if you wake up and are in, 4.7 or 5.3, to name two of the most popular kind of models right now, like there is no, I mean, there really is just no way it's not inevitable, the direction of travel.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I am totally biased. I've always built companies. I've always been tech forward. I'm completely, one way in all of this, but I really believe that it is innate that we will move to more efficiency. And what that means is that we will inevitably move toward more AI tech enablement and more agentic systems because that has to be the way things are going because it is more efficient and it does work. And so I think we used to use like organizational design and
Mm.
and silos and APIs and all sorts of tech things to like basically slow the course of progress in large scale institutions. But actually, now we're at a moment where it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like there will be lots of failures, but there will be tons of successes too.
Mm.
And the prospect and size of this transformation moment is so big that it's pretty exciting, and you can tell how passionate I am about it.
It definitely can. And
Yeah.
I wanted to, speaking on the doomsday piece as well. We've covered that and sort of see it in a different light. There's also people there who will talk about the hype of AI, and whilst everyone wants to get into it, there's been lots of people there who are circling around the AI thing and saying, right, we need a tool for this, but not really necessarily knowing how and why. And I think its utilization is incredibly important to have use cases that actually drive things further forward. Your business, as I said, has had a phenomenal start and great reputation and everything like that. And I think the predominant part of integrating, utilizing the business has got to be about gaining productivity and increasing performance and all that sort of stuff. So just touch for a moment on how working, the clients you're working with are benefiting from embedding Arteria into the business and getting actual results from it as well.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think that people are still a little bit skeptical. We see that Gartner hype cycle. There's hype, 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 and then we all go through that trough of disillusionment on the way out the other side. Um, Having been around for a number of AI winters, which happened just after the hype cycle, and you're still kind of working in it. The truth is this: ROI is the reason we exist. We exist because um, you know, we don't have theoretical revenue, we have revenue, and because we're responsible for driving results for our clients. Our clients are looking for results that are very tangible: speed to trade, or enhanced visibility on risk, or in some cases, closing audit points, or in a lot of cases, taking out cost as well, which is a huge part of this moment in time. And those are the types of tangible results that will drive people to inevitably work with external partners in addition to building their own, because I think you'll build your own, for speed and for ease, and lots of people will build lots of things in this moment, but you'll certainly work with external partners to sort of get a more certainty around that ROI. And so I think that those are the types of proof points that people really want to see in this moment,
Mm,
because this, like, agentic systems are all about getting to outcomes, no longer using widgets in a process, having multiple stakeholders engage with a single sort of set of technologies and technological systems to drive truly like straight through processing or some sort of end-to-end outcome. Whereas before we were sort of attacking the problem in widgety ways. Uh, this moment is all about sort of connection points and connecting everyone and everything together, and then putting, of course, guardrails and safety around that.
incredible. And I think the other thing that I really wanted to dive into with you guys, and this is probably a good way to move us towards the conclusion of a conversation I
Sure.
could be having forever, is is the business itself. So a phenomenal sort of story, as you say. You mentioned luck at various different stages, but luck is generally created by bringing great people together to do things. And I mentioned it beforehand. I love when you're writing your posts and your open letters to the teams. And my dearest Arterians, I love this Arterian piece. But we were speaking beforehand about what that actually comes from and what that means. And you've built businesses, you've been involved in some of the biggest businesses in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And I know how important culture is to you in this whole sort of story. It's one of my great passions. As I said before, I spend a lot of the year speaking to people about their culture, about their environments, about how they build that sort of thing. And honestly, speaking to you about your philosophy on it, I think is incredibly refreshing, but also massively energizing. So let's talk. Let's move on to culture, and let's talk about this great Arterian culture that you've created, and what it actually looks like. We've spoken about motivating teams in different sort of areas. People are having to think about how they motivate teams now in working with agentic bots of themselves along other sides, which are either a threat or an enhancer. Tell me a little bit about what culture and motivation and everything like that looks like to you today.
So I'm a huge Peter Drucker disciple, and as is every entrepreneur in the world, and as a result, I'm a huge, huge believer in culture. I think culture is actually probably the single biggest determinant of failure or success.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so, and it's a living thing, right? Like a culture is not something you write once and forget about. We keep trying to hone in and continue to sort of codify our culture because it's so critical to ensuring a few things. First of all, that people understand if we're the right place for them to work or not. It's equally okay to be really all in on our culture. It's also okay to say, gosh, that sounds really hardcore. It's
Yeah,
it's
not for
not
me.
me.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you can't openly laugh at your mistakes, you shouldn't come to Arteria because
Yeah.
A, there are too many of them to really not laugh. And B, like we're just that's the kind of if you get really stressed out and can't have a laugh, it's probably not the place for
Not for
you to
you.
work. And if so we really use culture as a self-selection mechanism. We also use culture as a real part of who we are, meaning that if I'm not in the room with someone to make a decision, our culture will tell them the decision that needs to be made in a compelling moment. And so at
Interesting.
Arteria, we're really extra, extra, extra passionate about this value that everyone always talks about. It's probably our most defining characteristic, which is Arterians are friendly. And what we mean by that is that hopefully we're extra, extra brilliant and want that too. Um, and really, really candid. But what we're doing is that we're always taking an extra moment to teach, always having a laugh when something goes wrong because it's just too frequent to not do that. And then really ensuring that we're kicking the ball and not the player, and ensuring that we are really, really focused on trying to make it a bit fun.
Mm,
Particularly in a market which is moving faster than it's ever moved, and particularly in a market that not everyone can see in this market. It's like it's been so bananas that I think we just need to ensure that we're doubling down on culture. I owe everything to the Arterians, and that this is no joke. You've already heard me speak about Jonathan and Abrar, my two co-founders, and they are the light of my work life. I won't undercut my kids in my home life, but and I'm so privileged to work with such an incredibly amazing executive team, and each person at this point has been carefully chosen for their incredible skills, but most importantly because we say bleed purple because they bleed purple and because they really emulate that Arterian culture. And
what
yeah,
allows that to happen? What allows that to happen? Because there's a lot of um, talk around certain. There's certain companies I love to study and love to look at and read about and all this sort of thing. And when you look at that, you generally get this sort of in a positive way, a cult-like feeling for where it goes. And when you talk about bleeding purple, that's a really interesting thing to say. To say it's clearly there. You can clearly see it. I see it in the documentation. I've spoken to people in the business. I see what people think of it, etc., etc. What creates that sort of ability for people to have to be able to repeat that sort of sentence when they're talking about their business?
Well, first of all, we hope that everyone really thinks about it when they come here. And we also talk about it. So every Friday, I host a cultural call, which sounds bananas, but we started in COVID, right? So no one
Mm,
was in person. And so we started a company with lots of people and nobody in person. So you kind of had to bring everyone together. And so we always talk about our values and really try and be really clear on this. For example, we always talk about friendliness, of course, and what that means, but we also talk about listening first. So whether it's our customers or our peers, we're trying to listen to really understand instead of simply to respond. And so we try and make it like a real point of pride to ensure that we're looking for like outcomes rather than solutions. And we tell stories, for example, at Arteria, one of our other major cultural aspects is like we're people who pick up a shovel. And to us that really means something because it means like, you don't kind of delegate and set and forget like oftentimes and people love and hate this. Oftentimes if we're in a real mess, like I will get involved and I will be there with the teams and for better or for worse, you either love that and think, gosh, that's so great, or you think please leave me alone. And those are defining characteristics, and that's why culture is important. But we also tell stories of like how on Apollo 11, an engineer once said, like, this mission will not fail because of me, and that we really try and make every single person fail, that we feel that we will win and lose as a team. And then we
yeah.
try and really embody this culture of constant improvement. and that we say you have like an obligation to sort of raise your hand and say, I can do better, we can do better. And again, not for everyone. That's really
Yeah,
exhausting. It's
you're absolutely
it's
right.
an
Yeah.
exhausting way to be. But if you want to work in a place where we're committed to excellence, we're getting better every day. We always say today is the worst day at Arteria. Like if you're here for that sort of cultish, is that what you called it? Cultish
I
like
think it's I
sort
think
of
I think it's a
culture.
I think it's a positive word if you use it the right way, the right way, right? And it's
No,
not
but
a
like
bad thing.
I think that that's probably right. Is like those who it's almost like, and I'll sort of bring it all together here and say it's almost like this moment of AI. Those who see can't unsee, and those who can't see may not ever be able to see.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's kind of the way it is at a native AI company like Arteria too. Like if you're here and you're working in an AI company in this moment in time, I mean, win, lose, or draw, what a privilege to work in this moment in a business like ours and sort of see and have like that sort of seat in the Coliseum and be able to watch, the man in the arena and all of that. And
Mm.
it's a pretty interesting time to sort of work and get the privilege of working in a company like ours. So you'll hear me say I'm deeply grateful for the Arterians, and I am, and you've reminded me that I owe them a letter for the start of this year, which I've been so busy I haven't gotten
Are you
to, but
ready
I
to
will get
start
to it.
printing? Get one of the bots
But
to do
yeah,
it. The bots will do it for you.
you see that's the trick. You can't get the bots to do it for you, but
Exactly, the authenticity. But then, what I also love about that is you to display that gratitude towards it. But I've spoken to you before we came on air as well about your sort of service and view to them. So there's this gratitude for what they've done for you. But I know that you will. You were talking about your job. So what's your job there to create learning, to great growth, create relationships, to be thinking about people. And I think you think of people in a, I won't say unique because I've spoken to someone who I mentioned beforehand about a very similar way of doing it, but it's unusual. It's unusual for people to be thinking about um, as selflessly as you do about the careers of the people who are in your organization and what you can do to create them and to build people who've had your journey and gone on your pathway and all that sort of thing. And I loved listening to that. So I'm going to shine the light on you a little bit here and talk and ask you a little bit about how you see that job and how you create that and why that's important to you.
I suppose, goodness, I really don't think of myself in that way. I don't even know that others think of me in that way. I think that what people
Well,
will
I
say,
did read beforehand. You what was it? One of the 10 most 100 most powerful Canadians in 2024. So yeah,
yeah,
someone's thinking it that way.
well, yeah, I suppose there are, all the awards are fun. Again, credit to the team. I am lucky to accept them on their behalf. But no, I kind of think of my job. I spend time almost equally across our business. And I think people are sometimes surprised to hear that. I think each team in Arteria thinks that they have the fortune or misfortune of having me full time. And I'm a really, really hands-on CEO. And I think of myself as helping in the most challenging parts of our business. And I kind of go where the biggest challenge is. And then when we're in a moment where I think things are kind of cruising in a really positive way, like I was just saying to our board yesterday, that I think that things are kind of under control inside, then I get to go and do all sorts of wonderful things and represent the company externally and make sure that we're learning from the world and not just in our echo chamber. But really, primarily, most of my job is just an extra pair of hands where the ship's a bit rough at any given time. And so when people are like, "Oh, we haven't seen you in a long time," I'm like, "That's because you're doing great."
Yeah,
And so yeah, I think that I work with leaders who are exceptional. We've brought in just top tier talent in the past couple of years that is, I mean, unbelievable. Very, very, very senior corporate executives, incredible researchers, incredible technical talent. I mean, really just right across the board. Um,
yeah,
I think we benefit from the fact that this is our second journey and that most of us left, really big jobs to come and do this because we're on a mission. And I think people see that and kind of want to join up. But the leaders here are second to none. And yeah, I guess My job is making sure that they are able to do their jobs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's never a bad thing to take further forward. So, an exciting time for you, an exciting time for the industry, an exciting time for technology, an exciting time for everyone, all those Arterians who are out there as well. Let's finish off by telling us what's exciting about the company now and Arteria AI. What's coming up for the rest of 2026? What's exciting? What can we expect to see from you guys?
Yeah, so first of all, super exciting. All of our agents are now in the platform, which is unbelievable. And what was so interesting is we went to every client and said, do you want us to build a fully agentic platform, or do you want us to build the agents in our platform, which is more challenging, but also we weren't sure that they would want us to do that. And actually every single person wanted us to add to our existing footprint. And so it has been phenomenally interesting as a journey. And thank goodness is now over the line. We are now exploring all sorts of ideas, like the future where agents will use our platform instead of users and how that will look, or where people will want to access our platform potentially in a headless way, or, all sorts of crazy ideas. And so I will just say this, I'm thrilled that we're working as fast as the market, because the market's going really fast. And so it's pretty neat to be able to speak in a way that's like so forward looking, but also so here in this moment. It's really fulfilling. And so just this morning, we were playing with how to access and configure Arteria through MCP, which is kind of neat. And is most certainly part of the future, but not something that customers will use likely today. And so all sorts of things coming. And when you can write and deploy codes and agents this quickly, it is, the world's your oyster. But for us, critically, we will continue to always focus in our core sweet spot of operations, focused. We're focused, we're disciplined in terms of workflows where auditability matters, focused on documentation, focused on, speed to revenue, risk to frail, and sort of cost minimization, like just continuing to focus and double down on where we're winning, is our secret sauce. And I think those who stay focused and clear-headed while we're running all of those future plays are the ones who will succeed in this market.
Sounds fantastic. And if people want to reach out and find out a little bit more about you, the business, everything else like that, they can get you on LinkedIn, head to the
Absolutely.
site,
LinkedIn.
all of the above.
I love LinkedIn. So yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Listen, Shelby, this has been absolutely what I needed at the end of the day to like today. This has been inspiring, energizing, loads of fun, all of the sort of stuff that I wanted it to be. And I was not disappointed. It's been wonderful to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.